episode 6, and this was actually much funnier than the previous one, so I'll give it a little bit of credit for that. I especially like the part at the beginning when Stalker goes to Cliff Note's house, and he's trying to get in, and Cliff Note is holding the door. And he shows up and he's like, wait, let me in. I thought we were friends. And Cliff Note's like, we're not friends. What are you talking about? And they have a tug of war over the door. That was actually really funny. But it's very jarring to see the show trying to do comedy when it's been serious so many, many times. We also have this really weird thing where Hairbo and Twin or No Patch are at a train tracks, and it looks like they're like either gonna race the train or one of them's gonna push the other. But then No Patch is like, I'll make sure I beat you for his affection, and then Hairbo is like, oh no, I'm gonna disappear again. And I'm like, what do you mean again? What are you talking about? Like, disappear from what? Are you saying physically you're going to disappear? Or are you being allegorical? I don't know, because the show is doing a very bad job of explaining these things. There's also a very long segment where Stalker actually comes into Cliff Note's house, and they're talking about the film, and for whatever reason, No Patch is there, and she's like, oh, well, all the people in this movie you're watching are really bad, and and I think Stalker's like, hey, I want you to be in this movie, and then I guess she agrees to it, but like, why are you agreeing to be in this movie if you know that he is weird and he like creeps on girls? I don't understand. I think I figured out the problem with the show. It has so many plot lines that it's trying to shove into one single episode that they all get muddled together, and you don't really know who's who or what's going on. You have a vague sense, but like, it feels like stuff is either being left out or it's just half-baked because of how stuffed together everything is. Because if you recall, in the original visual novel, everything is segmented by chapter. So the chapter with Mr. Boring and Eye Patch is one chapter. The chapter with Stalker, I keep almost calling him Kyosuke because that's his real name, but I don't care. And his love interest, I guess, is one. I think his love interest is supposed to be No Patch. I'm not really sure. They're all separate segmented chapters. Now, I admit I haven't played the games yet, so maybe I'm wrong. But it does feel like they're all separate chapters, so they can be fleshed out because they have the time to tell a complete story. Because this show is trying to smush them all together, and we have to cut back and forth between all of the plot lines at once, it doesn't feel like a complete story because of that. And it gets very convoluted and confusing. At least I vaguely know what's going on now. Also, because of that, you don't have time to flesh out the character chemistry. So none of the characters feel like they actually, matter in context. There's no actual chemistry between them because you're taking all this time, and you have to watch a dozen things at once. It kind of feels like a ping pong match between this person and that person, and this person's over here and that person's over there, and then this person's over there, and then this person. It's very annoying, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Also, I just want to point out, we have had nothing with Top Hat and whoever she is supposed to be talking to, so I don't really know what they're planning to do with that, if anything, because we've been spending all their time with the other characters, and apparently in the games she was telling a story throughout the story, but she's not actually doing that because we haven't really seen her at all. So I'm glad we're halfway through, because when we get to episode 12, I can finally move on to other stuff. I will be taking the rest of December off after that because I want to focus on being with my family for Christmas. And then in January, we will start the June project, which is basically where I watch all of the stuff that Jun Fukuyama's been. And then Shotaro Morikubo will be after that. If the stuff that overlaps with them, I will probably watch at the same time. So stuff, for instance, stuff where they're both in, like Amatsuki and what was it? Oh God, what was it now? D. Grayman. That stuff will come first, so I can get it out of the way. So that we don't have to watch those shows twice. But other than that, this show is still continuing to confuse me. I don't understand half of what's going on. But if you like this, you will feel free to go on to my Patreon. If you have a show you want me to watch, subscribe there, or go to my other channels, which I admittedly have not posted on yet, but I will. VN Hime, where I talk about visual novels and light novels and manga, or Yield Review Show, which I also need to start uploading on, where I talk about old classic movies and television shows. I also have a Tumblr where you guys can go and ask me questions. But other than that, today is just... I want to finish this show because I really, really, really don't want to not finish a show again, unless it's, inherently terrible. But at the same time, I'm just very struggling to get through this. So, we will see in the coming weeks if I actually manage to finish the show.